It's a new year and a new chance for you to make a fresh start with your compliance. For the next 31 days on the FCPA Compliance Report, we're going to be bringing you a daily tip, strategy, or idea that you can use to improve your program. Here's your host, Tom Fox, the Compliance Evangelist.
Welcome to a new month of 31 days to a more effective compliance program. For the month of May, we're going to be looking at written standards. And today we're going to introduce written standards from the compliance perspective. The cornerstone of any best practices compliance program is written protocols. This includes a code of conduct, policies, and procedures. These elements have long been memorialized in the U.S. Sentencing Guidelines, Department of Justice opinion releases regarding compliance programs, the 2012 FCPA Guidance, both DOJ and SEC FCPA enforcement actions, the 2019 Guidance, and of course the FCPA Corporate Enforcement Policy. There are three levels of standards and controls: codes of conduct, standards, policies, and procedures. Every company should have a code of conduct that expresses its ethical principles. But a code of conduct is not enough. The code of conduct is implemented through your company policies. It is further operationalized through your compliance procedures. The DOJ spoke to their importance in the 2019 guidance when it stated, as a threshold matter, prosecutors should examine whether the company has a code of conduct that sets forth, among other things, the company's commitment to full compliance with relevant federal laws that is accessible and applicable to all company employees. As a corollary, prosecutors should also assess whether the company has established procedures and policies that incorporate the culture of compliance into its day-to-day operations. In the 2019 guidance, the DOJ has presented us with several questions you can ask around your policies and procedures and your code of conduct. For instance, what has been the company's process for designing and implementing the code of conduct policies and procedures? Other questions include who has been involved in the design of the code of conduct and policies and procedures? Have the business units been consulted prior to rolling them out? Another area of inquiry is whether the company has implemented policies and procedures which called out the illegal conduct. Another area for consideration is whether the corporate functions with their ownership over policies and procedures have been held accountable for their implementation and oversight. Finally, are they accessible to employees? How is the company communicating the policies and procedures relevant to bribery and anti-corruption compliance, and has the company evaluated the usefulness of these policies and procedures and code of conduct? The 2019 guidance also provides some excellent points for the compliance professional around compliance policies and procedures. It lists out 4 general categories with attendant questions. Under design, what has been the company's process for designing and implementing new policies and procedures, and has that been changed over time? Under comprehensiveness, what efforts has the company made to monitor and implement the policies and procedures that reflect and deal with the spectrum of risks it faces, including changes to legal and regulatory landscape? Next, accessibility. How has the company communicated its policies and procedures to all employees and relevant third parties? If the company has foreign subsidiaries, are there linguistic and other barriers to foreign employees' access? And finally, responsibility for operational integration. Who has been responsible for integrating policies and procedures? Have they been rolled out in a way that ensures employees' understanding of policies? In what specific ways are company policies and procedures reinforced through a company's internal control systems? These are more than just some of the questions we're going to explore in this month's 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance program. We're going to consider the basis for your code of conduct and written standards through a deep dive into the code of conduct, the structure, form, design, and training of the code of conduct, and of course, operationalization. The same considerations will be given to policies and procedures, and then revising policies and procedures. We will conclude with a deep dive into policies that the DOJ has mandated you should have in any best practices compliance program. This will include gifts, travel and entertainment, charitable donations, and political contributions, internal controls, facilitation payments, extortion payments, and third parties. We will also discuss policies around cybersecurity, as that has become such an incredibly important topic. At the end of this 31 days, you will have a very detailed grounding on better written standards for your compliance program. You will be able to utilize the information presented to implement a more effective compliance program for your organization. So what are today's 3 key takeaways? Number 1, the cornerstone of any best practices compliance program is its written protocols. The DOJ has made it clear, literally over a 15-year period, that written protocols set up the very foundation of your compliance program. That means code of conduct, policies, and procedures. These must be created, designed, implemented, trained upon, and then revised. And we're going to go through all of those in this month of 31 days to a more effective compliance program. 2, written standards work to both prevent, detect, and then remediate. Remember, the 3 keystones of any compliance program are detection, prevention, and remediation. So properly designed written standards work in all 3 of these areas. And if you get into a situation where you find an FCPA violation or something else, you can always use these 3 concepts as your touchstone, particularly if you have to demonstrate to regulators the effectiveness of your compliance program. And then finally, what are the specific written protocols that you should have in your compliance program? Obviously, gifts, travel and entertainment, charitable donations, political contributions, internal controls, facilitation payments, extortion payments, and third-party issues are key areas. But what else is needed? Do you need cybersecurity? Do you need to incorporate things around Me Too? We're going to be exploring all of those this month in 31 days to a more effective compliance program. I hope you will stay with us through the entire 31 days. It will be quite an interesting exploration of written standards.
I hope you will enjoy the entire month on innovation and compliance in this month's offering of 31 days to a more effective compliance program. If I could ask you to do so, would you pass on to at least one person this podcast series on the nuts and bolts of compliance, as I'm trying to expand my audience base for 31 days to a more effective compliance program. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow, where I take up another topic in innovation in compliance. Thanks again for listening. 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance Program is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.